to the cloud. Hi guys, so I'm going to talk to you about the notes real quick. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, so we should have a clean whiteboard. So the first thing to consider is your time signature, right? So I'm going to use 4/4 as the example. The bottom note tells you how many beats a whole note gets. We're going to use 4 as an example because that's the most common. And the top note tells you how many beats are in each measure. And we're going to use 4 as the example because that's the most common. So in 4/4, a whole note would get 4 beats. If we were to add a stem to that, that cuts the value in half. And now a half note only gets 2 beats. If we were to color in the head, that cuts the value again, and now that's called a quarter note, and that only gets 1 beat. If we add a stem to it, it cuts the value in half again. Now that's an eighth note, it only gets a half a beat. Very often, if you see 2 eighth notes, because it takes 2 eighth notes to make 1 beat, instead of seeing 2 flags, you'll see a beam connecting the 2 eighth notes, because it takes 2 notes to make 1 beat, so the 2 notes will share a beam instead of having their individual flag. Or you might see 4 eighth notes all sharing 1 beam, in which case those 4 eighth notes would take 2 beats to play. Okay, so dotted notes. So when you dot a note, it adds 50% of the value to the note. So here's a half note getting 2 beats. If I add a dot to it, now that dotted half note gets 3 beats. If I have a quarter note, which gets 1 beat, if I add a dot to it, now that note gets a beat and a half. If I have an eighth note, which gets a half a beat, and I add a dot to it, now that note gets 3/4 of a beat, right? A half and a quarter equals 3/4. Okay, so rest. So we have a whole note rest, which is just a brick hanging off one of the staff lines. We have a half rest, which is just a brick sitting on one of the staff lines. How do you tell them apart or remember which is which? You don't have to, because when you have a whole rest, you're going to see nothing else in that measure. You're going to see just the brick, so it means you just sit for the measure. Whereas on a half a rest, there's going to be other stuff in the measure, right? So a half rest, you're going to see 2 beats of resting, but then you're also going to see 2 beats worth of notes. Okay, and then there's a quarter rest, which means you rest for 1 beat, or an eighth rest looks like this. That means you rest for half a beat, right? Okay, now let's talk about ties. So down here, what if you have a note that has to be held more than just 4 beats? How are you going to do it? If a measure only gets 4 beats, what are you going to do if you need to hold a note for 5, 6, 8 beats, 12 beats, 16 beats? Well, you use ties. So we might have something like this. Might have something like this. Okay, so these curved lines, let's do that. These curved lines, you know, so this 4 beats plus these 2 beats is a total of 6. These 2 and these 2 in the next bar is a total of 4. These 2 and that 4 is a total of 6. So if I was to play this, these beats here in 4/4, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, let's turn on the keyboard. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's everything. So if you have a long note, take a deep breath if you're singing, or if you're playing the piano, just keep your finger marked on the same note. You don't have to strike it again. If you're playing guitar, you're not doing anything. If you're on a string, you're just counting out the beats while you listen to the note, you know, chime out. If you're on sax or something of that nature, also take a deep breath so that you can hold the note for the full duration. Okay, that's everything, guys.